The rain came down hard that Tuesday morning. It hammered against the cafe windows like something angry, something relentless. Inside, the usual breakfast rush had thinned to almost nothing. Just empty tables and the hiss of the espresso machine. That's when Maya Santos walked in and ordered the one decent meal she'd been able to afford in 3 weeks. She was 19, pregnant, and completely, utterly alone. Her hands shook as she paid with crumpled bills she'd been saving, coins she'd counted twice. The plate arrived, scrambled eggs, toast, a side of fruit, and for just a moment, sitting there in that warm corner booth, she let herself believe things might be okay. Then she saw her. The girl came through the door like she'd been shoved by the storm itself, drenched, shaking. Maybe 17, maybe 20. It was hard to tell through the fear. Her jacket hung open despite the cold, and beneath it, unmistakably, was the curve of a belly. 6 months along, maybe more. She stood there dripping onto the tile, eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. The barista asked if she needed something. The girl opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just a strangled sound, barely audible over the rain. Then, quieter. Please. Help. Maya didn't think. She just moved. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was because she recognized that look, the one that said, I have nowhere else to go. Or maybe it was because 3 months ago, Maya had stood in a similar doorway, terrified and broke, and someone had helped her then, too. Maybe it was the memory of her little sister, Sophia, who once said, Maya, helping someone is like sharing your umbrella in a storm. You both get a little less wet. Whatever the reason, Maya picked up her plate and walked over. Here, she said, setting it down on the table nearest the girl. Sit. Eat this. You need it more than I do. The girl stared at the food like it might vanish. Her hands trembled as she reached for the fork. And when she took the first bite, tears started streaming down her face. Not delicate crying, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and desperate, the kind that mixes with rain still clinging to your skin, and you can't tell which is which anymore. Maya sat down across from her, her own stomach growling in protest. She ignored it. That knot in her chest, the one she'd carried since finding out she was pregnant, grew heavier, tighter, but also somehow lighter, like doing this one thing made the weight more bearable. What's your name? The girl swallowed hard, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Lena. She didn't offer more. No last name, no explanation, no story about how she'd ended up soaked and starving in a cafe on the wrong side of Portland. Maya didn't push. She understood silence. She'd lived in it for weeks after her boyfriend walked out, after her parents stopped returning her calls, after she realized she'd be doing this completely on her own. Silence after trauma looked a certain way. It had shape and weight, and you recognized it when you saw it. Lena ate slowly, like she was afraid the plate would be taken away. When she finished, she just sat there staring at the crumbs, her breathing shallow and uneven. The rain outside had stopped, but her hands still shook. Her eyes stayed distant, unfocused. Maya called her supervisor to say she'd be late for her shift at the grocery store. Then She took off her hoodie, the warmest thing she owned, and draped it over Lena's shoulders. When Lena tried to refuse, Maya just wrapped it tighter around her anyway. The girl flinched, then looked up with wide, disbelieving eyes. Like kindness was a language she'd forgotten how to speak. For the next hour, they sat there in the quiet hum of the cafe. Lena thawed, bit by bit. Her shoulders dropped, her breathing steadied. The rigid fear in her posture softened, though it never quite disappeared. You could still see it flickering behind her eyes, like a candle that wouldn't go out. Eventually she spoke. No money, no phone, nowhere to go. She had a backpack, soaked through, with a change of clothes and a sonogram photo she kept touching like a talisman, like proof that what was happening to her body was real. Maya offered to drive her somewhere safe, to call someone who could help. Lena went rigid immediately, shaking her head violently. Her whole body tensed like she might bolt. "No, please, I can't. I can't." She didn't explain, and Maya didn't pry. Fear like that had reasons, even if you didn't know what they were. Instead, Maya pulled out her wallet and emptied it. $23 and some change. Enough for another meal, maybe two if she was careful. It meant she'd be eating ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for the rest of the week. But she'd done that before. She'd do it again. "Take it," she said, pressing the bills into Lena's hand. Lena's voice cracked like glass breaking. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Maya thought about that, about how close she'd come to being Lena, about the woman at the clinic who'd paid for her prenatal vitamins when Maya's card declined, about her neighbor who left groceries outside her door without asking for anything back, about all the small mercies that had kept her afloat when she was drowning. "Because somebody helped me once," Maya said quietly, "and because we have to look out for each other. Nobody else is going to." When Lena stood to leave, she hesitated at the door, turned back. Her eyes were glassy, swimming with an emotion Maya couldn't name. Gratitude, maybe, or guilt, or something deeper and more complicated than either. Then she was gone, disappearing into the easing daylight like she'd never been there at all. Maya didn't see her again. Not that day, not that week, not even that month. Life kept moving. Doctor's appointments, job applications, the relentless grind of trying to build something stable before the baby came. She thought about Lena sometimes, wondered if she was okay, hoped she'd found somewhere safe. But mostly, she was too exhausted to think about anything beyond the next shift, the next bill, the next day. Then, 6 weeks later, Maya received a letter. It arrived in her mailbox, wedged between overdue notices and grocery store circulars. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, with embossed lettering she'd only ever seen in movies. Her stomach knotted immediately. Lawyers didn't send letters to broke pregnant teenagers unless something had gone very, very wrong. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a short message on expensive letterhead. "Ms. Santos, we request your presence at the offices of Morrison and Associates regarding a matter of urgent and personal importance concerning Miss Lena Volkov." Lena, the girl from the cafe, the one who'd disappeared. Maya read it 3 times. Then she sat on her second-hand couch with her head in her hands, trying to make sense of it. Why would lawyers be involved? Why her? Had something happened to Lena? Was she hurt? Dead? Was Maya the last person to see her safe? Her breath quickened, panic rising like floodwater. But she couldn't ignore it. She had to know. The next morning, after her shift ended, she took 2 buses across the city to a towering glass building that seemed to swallow the sky whole. Inside, everything was marble and chrome, and people in suits that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She felt painfully out of place in her thrift store jeans and stretched out maternity top, one hand unconsciously resting on her belly. An assistant led her to a conference room overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a table that could seat 20, leather chairs that probably cost more than her car. Maya's legs felt shaky. She sat down and tried to steady her breathing. Then 2 attorneys entered, both women, both carrying folders thick enough to be intimidating. They sat across from her with expressions that were professional, but not unkind. "Miss Santos," the older one began, "we represent Miss Lena Volkov." Maya stiffened. "Is she okay? Is she—" "She's safe," the attorney said gently. "Thanks, in large part, to you." Relief crashed into Maya so suddenly she had to grip the edge of the table to steady herself. But confusion quickly followed, tangling with the relief until she couldn't separate them. "I don't understand. Why am I here?" The lawyers exchanged a glance. Then the younger one slid a photograph from her folder and pushed it across the table. It showed Lena, but not the terrified, soaked girl from the cafe. This Lena was radiant, smiling, dressed in clothes that looked expensive, standing in front of what appeared to be a museum or gallery, her belly round and proud beneath a designer dress. Maya blinked. It didn't make sense. Nothing about it made sense. "Miss Volkov," the attorney explained, "is an acclaimed fine art photographer and the sole heir to a considerable family estate. But she's also been battling severe trauma following a violent incident involving someone who attempted to exploit both her work and her personal situation. After escaping that situation, she disappeared without telling anyone. Family, friends, her support network. She refused protection, refused financial help. She just ran." Maya felt the room tilt slightly. But she looked homeless, terrified. "She was," the lawyer said quietly. "Trauma doesn't care how much money you have. It strips everything away until you're just trying to survive the next hour." The younger attorney leaned forward, her expression softening. "Ms. Santos, Miss Volkov told us that when she truly had nothing, not even hope, you gave her food. You gave her warmth. You treated her like a human being instead of a problem to be solved or ignored. You were 6 weeks pregnant yourself. You were struggling, and you still helped." Maya swallowed hard, her throat tight. Anyone would have done the same. "Most people didn't," the attorney replied. "According to Miss Volkov, at least 7 people walked past her in that cafe before you stood up. You were the only one who did anything." Maya didn't know what to say to that. The knot in her chest felt impossibly heavy. The older attorney opened her folder and slid several papers toward Maya. Legal documents with signatures and seals and language she couldn't quite pass through the blur of confusion. Miss Volkov instructed us to deliver this to you. She's currently at an undisclosed treatment facility where she'll remain until she's fully recovered. She won't be reachable for some time, doctor's orders. But before leaving, she wanted to make sure that the kindness you showed her wasn't forgotten. Maya's brow furrowed. What is all this? The attorney offered a small, genuine smile. It's a full financial trust established in your name and your child's, enough to cover stable housing, medical care, childcare, and living expenses for the next 3 years while you pursue any education or career path you choose. There's also a separate fund for your baby's future, college, emergencies, whatever they need. Maya's breath caught. She shook her head, the words not landing, not making sense. This can't be real. I didn't do anything to deserve. You gave hope to someone who'd lost everything, the lawyer said softly. Sometimes that's worth more than you realize. Ms. Volkov left a note for you. She said, and I'm quoting here, "She gave me breakfast when I felt like a ghost. So I want to give her back her future." The room went blurry. Maya's eyes burned and she looked away, overwhelmed, unable to process the enormity of what she was hearing. The thought that a single meal, something she could barely afford, something that left her hungry for days, had become the turning point in someone's life felt impossible, surreal, like something that happened to other people in stories, not to broke teenagers working double shifts at a grocery store. But the documents were real, the signatures were real, and sitting across from her were 2 lawyers who had no reason to lie. "She wanted me to tell you one more thing," the younger attorney added. "She said you saved her life that day, and she hopes this helps save yours." Maya left the building in a daze, clutching the folder like it contained something fragile and precious. Outside, the afternoon light filtered through clouds, soft and golden. For the first time in months, maybe longer, Maya didn't feel the crushing weight of survival pressing down on her shoulders. She felt something else, something lighter, gratitude, disbelief, and a fierce, burning determination not to waste what Lena had given her. In the months that followed, Maya's life transformed in ways that felt both gradual and seismic. She moved into a small but safe apartment in a better neighborhood. 2 bedrooms, heat that worked, windows that locked, walls that didn't shake when trucks drove by. She enrolled in online courses for graphic design, something she'd dreamed about since high school but never thought she'd have the chance to pursue. The trust covered everything: rent, utilities, doctor's appointments, prenatal vitamins, even the birthing class she'd been too embarrassed to attend before because she couldn't afford the fee. Her daughter was born on a rainy October morning, small and perfect, and screaming with the kind of fury that made the nurses laugh. Maya held her and cried, not from fear or exhaustion, though there was plenty of both, but from something deeper: relief, joy, the overwhelming realization that they were going to be okay. She named her Hope. From time to time, Maya visited that café. She'd sit by the window where Lena had stood dripping and terrified, where everything had changed. She hoped quietly that someday Lena might return, stronger, healed, smiling again. She didn't know if it would happen, didn't even know if Lena thought about that morning the way Maya did. But she knew this. The world was full of moments where kindness could bridge the distance between despair and survival, where a single choice could ripple outward in ways you'd never see or understand, where helping someone cost you something, but not helping cost you more. And she carried that knowledge forward. When she saw a young mother struggling with groceries and a screaming toddler, Maya held the door. When her neighbor's power got shut off, Maya bought them candles and batteries. When a pregnant girl came through her checkout line counting change for milk, Maya quietly covered the difference, because someone had helped her once. And before that, someone had helped Lena. And maybe that was how you survived this world. Not by waiting for things to get better, but by making them better for someone else. Even when you barely had enough yourself. Hope grew. Maya graduated from her program. Lena never came back to the cafe. But the lesson remained, stubborn and bright and impossible to ignore. We're all just trying to make it through. And sometimes the only thing standing between falling and flying is someone who stops long enough to see you. Have you ever been helped by a stranger when you needed it most? Or maybe you were the one who helped. Share your story in the comments. Sometimes we all need reminding that compassion still exists, especially in the hardest moments.